Okay, you might get sick of me saying this, but gouache paints are now my favorite way to paint. Full stop, they're awesome. Whether that's creating something cool and interesting looking super quick, like I do with oil paints, or my new version of the easiest way to paint ever, or at least the easiest way to get really good results very fast. Perfect for army painting. So this whole process is really just base coats and a wash, but in a way that's more, I don't know, interesting and better looking, a better result than with a typical kind of wash, like Nuln Oil, and ultimately more cost efficient. Now, I tend to start with a heavy zenithal of whatever the major color is on each model, but we don't have to do that. You can just start from a black or whatever color you normally prime with. And then we just smash on some base coats. And so for these hyper-adapted Raveners, I've got orange for the carapace, some ivory white on the claws and the teeth, and then a pale pink if there's tongues sticking out, like on the prime. Now at this point in the process, we're left with honestly, some pretty dull and ugly, flat minis. But we need to trust the process because all the magic is going to come from this little tube. Now with my Tyranids, I've been using violet as the wash, and that was true when I was using the oil paints as well. But now we're using this gouache paint. So I'm just gonna put some onto my wet palette. Does it need to be a wet palette? No, but that's what's right here, so it's what I'm gonna use. And then I just basically create a pretty thick wash right on the palette and just smash it over the entire mini. Now, if you've done this with oil paints before, this is very much the same. You do need to do a little more work with the brush to kind of get the paint everywhere. The increased surface tension of the water means that it doesn't flow into all of those crevices, all the cracks, nearly as easily as the solvent, as the mineral spirits. So you just kind of have to work it a little more with the brush. With our gouache wash, the gouache, dry, we're left with just an ugly purple mess. The ugly phase part 2, electric boogaloo. But again, we need to just trust the process here and grab our trusty makeup blender. I like the dollar store variety because they're cheap. And a little bit of water, and we can clean these guys up. So just get that sponge a little bit damp. Not really soaking wet, but just damp so it makes that gouache move around a bit more, and start wiping it off. And I'll use these beauty blenders for the bulk of the removal process, but eventually get to points that this won't get into, or all of the spiky, toothy bits are just shredding it. So in that case, I move to these sponge tip applicators. But the process is still the same. Get it a little bit damp and then start wiping away. And just like that, with a few minutes of work, we've got battle-ready dudes ready to commit some war crimes on the tabletop. And kind of one of my favorite parts of this whole removal, reductive painting process is you can get rid of as much or as little of that gouache as you want. I like to leave them a little bit grungy. It's kind of fitting for that grim dark vibe, but with more colors, so therefore it's clown dark. Because it's the internet and everything needs a name. Anyways, we could absolutely leave these guys right here and throw them into games. But with just a couple of minutes and a few highlights, we can elevate these guys just a touch. And there you go, my cheat code paint method to quickly put models onto the tabletop that look like you've got a lot more skill than you actually do, and ultimately take very little time to actually get done. I'm super loving gouache paint and having so much fun just messing around with it, painting some models start to finish with it, like these dudes. And otherwise using it just like this. It gives me all of the things, or most of the things, that I like about oil paints without solvents. Just using water. And I think with all of the junk that we expose ourselves to in this hobby, that's probably a good thing. And I know there are different types of gouache paint. Although it's all sort of a watercolor, some of it doesn't necessarily reactivate, so your mileage may vary. Ultimately though, thank you so much for watching. You are awesome, and I'll see you soon.